the esteemed privilege to interview a young woman who is doing her thing, amazing entrepreneur, and is the definition of somebody who makes things happen, who is always moving forward. And so, to talk a little bit about Goody Nation first before we start this conversation, Goody Nation is a nonprofit based in Atlanta, Georgia, but is national. And we are focused on closing the relationship gap for tech focused social entrepreneurs and diverse founders all across the country. We define the relationship gap as the lack of connection between entrepreneurs and those in influential networks. So think name brand universities and name brand companies. In many cases, people talk about the lack of financial capital for diverse founders and social entrepreneurs being the big thing, and it's a big issue. What we found, however, is that the lack of relationships for them lead to less financial capital, but it also leads to things like higher levels of stress. It leads to lack of customers and lack of professional development. So today we're going to talk a little bit about it. We're going to go into a conversation with London here. Talk a little bit about her origin story and inflection points. Talk about her thoughts on relationships and also how they have impacted her business. So, London, let's learn a little bit more about you. Can you give the people out there a quick intro and overview about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Joey. I'm excited to be here. So, hi, everyone. My name is Lundyn Carter. I am the co founder and CEO of Laine London. We are a first of its kind bridal shop that's appending the wedding dress experience by providing chic high end wedding dresses for rent versus for purchase. Super excited to be here, talk about all of the relationships that have helped me get to the point where I am today, and looking forward to sharing my journey with you.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm a big Star Wars person. And I love prequels and origin stories. Sequels and stuff are cool, but I love to go back and understand how someone got to be who they are. So let's learn a little bit about who you are, where you come from, how did you get to where you're doing, what are some of those inflection points of people you've met along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am originally from Santa Fe, New Mexico. So my parents actually met there in college. My dad is African American and my mom is Spanish. So I grew up out west, and then actually moved to Florida when I was, I think, in like third or fourth grade. So I consider myself a Floridian. But I think throughout my time growing up, especially as a person of color, it was interesting to see the dynamics and the types of relationships that came from being, this young kid growing up in the 80s and 90s whose parents did a really great job at telling her that she was just like everyone else. And, because of that, I think I built relationships with all different types of people from all different backgrounds. My mom is a teacher by trade. She's been a teacher in the inner city for over 40 years. It might be less than that. I'd probably just aged her. But so I grew up around kids that weren't as privileged as we were, and really being able to see how my mom built relationships with these kids who didn't have anything and their parents and treated them just like anyone else. And so it started really early on that I really understood the importance of, respecting everyone and treating each other how you would want to be treated, and how, they want to be treated, because not everyone, does that. And I think people can tell from the moment that they meet you, I think, how you're going to treat them and how you're going to respect them. And so, early on, it was, you're no different. My mom used to say, we all put our pants on the same way. And so just, being a great example to my younger brothers. I'm the oldest of four kids. Being a great example to them about what relationships look like, and then moving on into my undergrad career, and then mentoring young people while I was in corporate America, and continuing to, I think, just building those relationships and showing what relationships look like has always been something that's important to me.
Nice, nice, nice. I mean, so one of the cool things about digging in someone's origin story is the understanding like key points or common points. And so for me, my mother was an educator, or is in education as well. And so actually, my grandmother was a elementary school teacher, and many of the people in my family are. as well. So let's talk a little bit about how you got to become an entrepreneur. So you moved to Florida from New Mexico, went to college. Like, what happened between time you were in college and what you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. And I've said this several times in articles and interviews. Growing up as a young mixed girl in the United States, or really anywhere, um, you don't really you don't really hear the word entrepreneur, first of all, in the 90s, 2000s. But then 2002, 2003 come, and then when you see entrepreneurs and startups, you just see like the Mark Zuckerbergs. And so you see these like bros, that I guess we call them, at Harvard or in their mother's basement, and they're coding, and that's to me what I always saw as an entrepreneur. I never saw anyone that looked like me. I think the first time I ever actually saw an entrepreneur that had come from startup world was Sarah Blakely, and that was way later down the road. And so I always told myself, and my parents, they put themselves through they put me through college. I have student loans. I, worked my butt off when I was in college. But, one thing that they said is they'll never be able to take away your degree. And so
Yeah.
for me, it was always, okay, you're going to go to college. You're going to get this corporate job. You're going to climb this metaphorical ladder, and you're going to have this secure space. And this is what you're going to do. And it really wasn't until, gosh, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I was working at Cox Communications and Diversity and Inclusion, and I was leading that group, and I decided to get my MBA. And so I was a political science major in college, and I knew that there was something missing from my education, and I didn't have that business background, that business acumen that I was really missing. And so I decided to get my exec MBA. I said, if I was going to do it, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to go to the best school that is in the area. No offense to the others, but so I went to Emory University. Go Emory. Um, and it was pretty life changing. That was the first time where I took an entrepreneurship class, and it was very new to the curriculum. And it was just one class, and it was taught by Charlie Getz, who's very well known in the Atlanta ecosystem when it comes to startups. And it was just life changing. It really kind of brought everything together for me. I've always seen myself as a leader, as someone who wanted to make a difference, wanted to make change. And I was doing that in my career, in my corporate job. But when I started learning about disruption, disrupting these industries, it wasn't just about being an entrepreneur. It was about doing something radical. You hear about, Jen Hyman of Rent Their Runway and Airbnb. And like I said, Spanx, like these people all have something in common, that they took an industry and basically flipped it on its head. And so for me, it wasn't just about being a business owner or an entrepreneur. It was about finding something that I could disrupt. And so that's really how it started. It wasn't that traditional route. I didn't, right out of college, develop an app or, start a business. But I just fell in love with it, and I haven't looked back. We've talked about this. You've been there pretty much since day one. You have your ups and your downs and your good days and your bad days. But at the end of the day, it's just something about working for yourself and building something from scratch that just keeps you going.
Nice, 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 nice. So you mentioned Charlie Getz. I believe that there are these hidden figures, so to speak. A lot of, in the grand scheme of life, maybe not a lot of people know about Charlie Getz and stuff like that. But I think there are people sprinkled throughout our lives who make a tremendous impact. They create these inflection points. So, want to go into a little bit about some of the other people that you've met along your way as an entrepreneur that have made a difference. Anybody comes to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So Charlie was kind of that first push, but shortly after that, Amelia Schaffner, who is at Emory, was at a business school, so she runs the entrepreneurship program. She had reached out to me to see if I was interested. I was actually on vacation with my family, and I just so happened to check my email, and I had this email from her asking me if I was interested in this little program at Atlanta Tech Village called It Takes a Village. I think, was that what I think it's called?
Yeah, it takes a
Yeah,
village. Yeah.
pre-accelerator. And I didn't know much about it. I had just kind of started like the research phase of Laine London, but she was like, you have to apply today. And I remember I was in Canada. And so I was in Canada and on the opposite coast, and I had to like, I think I had like an hour to fill out the application. And so I'm sitting there filling it out, trying to get Wi-Fi. And then next thing I know, I get back in town a couple of days later, and I have an interview with David Lightburn and Karen Houghton about the program. And that was really kind of that pivotal moment. I didn't know anything about startups. I didn't know what a
Mm.
business model was, business canvas. I'd all heard about it in Charlie's class, and I'd seen it from the educational perspective, but I'd never really understood what it was. And so that was pretty crucial to me. Pretty much right after that is kind of when you and Jewel came along. And I actually met Jewel through that program. She came and spoke to us. And that was the first time that I had met her. And like I said, I didn't see anyone that looked like me doing this. And so not only to see this, beautiful, educated Black woman, talking about her startup that she sold to Amazon, but it was in a very non-traditional, female-led industry. And that was just fascinating to me. And so it's these people, like you said, that are sprinkled into your life that come at different times, but I truly believe that they come at the right times. And they come when you're ready. But also, something that I say all the time is luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And I truly believe that in everything that I do. Like, things just don't get handed to you. People ask me all the time, you've got this money from Google, from American Express, from all these companies. It's because of the hard work and the preparation that I made sure that I had. When these opportunities were then presented to me, I was able to articulate why I was the best fit for them. And so without those people, I mean, you guys really were the first people who catapulted me into this world of entrepreneurship.
No, I love it. I love it. So shout out to Amelia, shout out to Jewel Burks, Solomon there. The story reminds me of one with Jasmine Crow from Gooder. So I remember the whole story about you having an hour to apply. And it's interesting to see the growth of both of you all. So your story is you have an hour to apply. You're going on to do great things, and I do want to talk about that in a second. But with Jasmine, she emailed me. This is, fall. This is what early September, 2016, or maybe like literally like the end of August 2016, and she
Mm-hmm.
had an hour to apply to our program as well. And she said that, is this idea interesting to you? And if it is, does it fit within the thesis essentially for your program? And I was like, yes and yes. You have an hour to apply, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, so Jasmine spoke through that same program here at Tech Village,
mm,
and I saw her from afar, so I'd heard of her. I feel like she's maybe like, I guess, one class or one or two classes ahead of me in my entrepreneurship journey. But it was just, her story was just fascinating, like you said. And I remember something that she was talking about to us, where she literally, for two things, her business concept is simple. It makes sense. Like, why are businesses throwing away all of this food when there are starving people all over it? It just didn't make sense. Like, it was a logistical issue that no one had wanted to figure out, and she went and figured it out. But the other thing that really stuck out to me was, there was times where she was literally picking up the food and dropping it off. And just this weekend I was sitting there sewing sleeves on a dress, because just there was a mix up on something, and I'm not a seamstress, but I had to do it. But and so, like, there's times where as an entrepreneur, you are so passionate about your idea that you don't want it to fail, and you want it to work out very well. And so you have to do that, like, that you in the business. I always say, like, working in the business and working on the business are two very different things. But she was also an inspiration to me and continues to be. And I'm just so proud of her success. And I try and cheer her on as much as I can. She's just an amazing person. Both, like I said, her and Jewel are just amazing examples to go after.
not so interesting thing. So and I don't know what room within Atlanta. Actually, so when Jasmine came to speak to you, like I'm assuming it was actually at Atlanta Tech Village.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Do you know like what room it was in?
Yeah. So, where they have the ping pong table, that room.
Okay.
So there's that room to the right, where they usually do like lunch and learns and things like that. So it was in that room. I think there was like 10 people in the cohort
Mm.
that they were speaking to, and we didn't know. All of us were. It's I wouldn't even consider it early stage startups. I mean, this is like everyone was pretty much very pre-seed, pre-revenue, pre-everything. I mean, I think David came in and showed us how to do a business template, or the business plan layout, and we all were just trying to figure out if our ideas were worth continuing. So here you have, these women who are just pioneers in both of their spaces and their industries, and are just changing the game right here in Atlanta, not in Silicon Valley, not in New York, here in Atlanta. Was just so inspiring. And I mean, like that was, I mean, I didn't even have relationships with them at the time. It was just, like you said, just being in the room and being able to hear someone's story. That in itself, I feel like, is a relationship builder, and shows you that you don't have to, have an MBA from Harvard or an MBA from Stanford to be able to see and be around that energy of phenomenal entrepreneurs.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Inspirational relationships are there. Giving someone a standard to strive toward is a huge thing. I think, I bring up the Jasmine piece because a week later, after she emailed me, she's in Atlanta Tech Village at our ideation lab in the large room they have for events and things of that nature. So I don't know what year did she come to speak to you? I guess were you in that program?
So we were in the first cohort. I want to say 2017, maybe.
Mm.
Yeah.
So if it's 17, so you talk about a year later. She
Yeah.
was she was a year later. She's talking to you all.
I think she had just, and I may be wrong, I think she had just confirmed her deal with the airport, with the
Mm.
Atlanta airport.
Yep.
And then I
Yep.
think it just went off from there. I think everyone
Yeah.
else, you know, joined the bandwagon, which is
Yeah.
pretty darn good bandwagon to get onto. So
Yeah. Exactly. Relationships matter.
they
Trust me.
matter.
Relationships matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about where you sit today, right? You threw out some name Google for Startups, American Express. I think there's a few others. What you working on today? Latest progress, kind of things of that nature. What's the latest and greatest?
Yeah, so we actually we're in the last day of June. We just had our best month ever, which I'm super excited for my amazing team. June last year, which was very different than probably any June will ever be, due to COVID, I think we were at around maybe like 4,500 that month in revenue. We just broke a little over 25,000. I think
Mm,
we're at like 25.8. So
nice,
and we have, I think, maybe 3 or 4 appointments left for the day. So that
nice.
may change. But we're just killing it. And I think, we're doing it on our own. So we've done a little bit of fundraising, but our cap table is still just myself and my co-founder. Last year, we received some amazing support, as you mentioned, from some amazing companies. That was such huge validation. Validation was like the word that I used to describe last year. It really was, because there's just something about these billion-dollar companies saying, "Hey, check out this person." American Express 100 for 100. These were founders from all over the world. Like it's amazing validation that you're in the right place and you're doing the right things. And so right now I'm just focused on getting us to the next point. Our path to scalability is pretty much laid out for the next year or two. A lot of it is because of Goody Nation and Google. This SAP pro bono project program, pardon me, that just wrapped up, as well as the Verizon marketing comm programs. Those really laid out the foundation for our plan for scalability, and automating a lot of our processes and procedures. And it's going to take us to the next level. And I'm super excited to just continue getting that rolled out, because that's That's really what it is. I mean, never in a million years would I have ever thought that three phenomenal SAP consultants would be working with Laine London at this level that we're at for 6 weeks. And not only did, they just dive into my business, they transformed it. And I told them, I said, you guys will forever be a part of our team and our journey. And I'm just so grateful for those relationships that I would have never built if it wasn't for Goody Nation and for Google.
Let's dig into this a little bit more. So again, we define relationship gap as the lack of connection between entrepreneurs and, in this case, name brand companies. So you mentioned SAP, you mentioned Verizon, two of the largest companies in the world. In this case, they essentially have pro bono programs that are providing some sort of support, either kind of in depth or with advice. So I want to start with SAP. Can you describe, what they actually, a little bit about the program, and maybe at a high level. Don't give away any trade secrets.
Yeah, yeah.
What they were able to do for you.
Yeah, so essentially, we worked with them to streamline the efficiency of our day-to-day operations and our inventory management systems. We are the first of its kind wedding dress rental business model. So there's no other business model in the world that operates like ours. And I actually know that for a fact because we tried very hard to find some people to talk to. It was like, how do you do this? And so, we've basically pieced together things for the last 2 years. And so they came in and basically evaluated our tech stack. And what was most important was, if anyone knows SAP, this company works with multi-billion-dollar companies. They're not, out there working with scrappy startups like mine who are excited to do 20 grand a month. And so for them, the challenge was, okay, how do we take their current tech stack and their current tools and technology that they're using and allow them to continue that while they're scaling their company. So maybe eventually one day they'll be able to use SAP products, but right now, like, what can we do to make sure that our recommendations that we provide for scaling their day-to-day operations is something that's actually obtainable for them? And I tell you, they did it. Like you said, I don't want to give too much away, but just within the last 6 weeks that we've worked with them, we've seen our revenue and our consultations just increase dramatically. We're hearing from brides, word of mouth marketing has always been something that we've done, but we're hearing from brides, from friends of friends of friends that have already heard about us and are like, I tried to get an appointment. I couldn't get one. Can I get in? Like, it's really cool. We're really trying to keep up with the growth that we're seeing. And a huge part of that was creating and streamlining our technology. There have to be things that are automated. The level of expectations from not only customers, but from brides who are trusting us with transforming them on their biggest day is super important. And so having things and systems automated in place is extremely important as you grow for any company, but mostly, a lot for us as we're figuring out and understanding how to make this one of a kind business model work.
Nice, nice. I mean, let's talk about the human side of it as well. I
Yeah.
mean, did you develop relationships with those employees? Where do you see it going from here?
Yeah, so I got really lucky early on. So my co-founder and I have been close friends for over 10, 15 years. My background, and actually, before I say this, the more and more that I hear stories of successful founders or people who had tech backgrounds, and then people ask them what's been the success of their company, is they've brought on people who have human resource backgrounds. So HR, diversity and inclusion, talent development. I believe it was, and I forgot his name, and I'm just going to say Serena Williams' husband. What's his name?
I think it was Alexis or
Alex.
something.
Alexis.
Alex,
So
yes.
I just heard him speak on something, and he was talking about, so his business partner, she's like the former HR person at a startup. And he said, like, that human capital piece, like, he's great at the tech piece. Like, he created Reddit, he can do all that, but okay, you create this great product. Now you have to like hire people to work for you and like want them to stay there and like encourage them to, invest as much as they can into the business as you are. And so having that background in human resources and talent development, I think really helped me. And honestly, the HR piece has been pretty simple because of that. And I've just been able to, I know how to navigate relationships and things like that. And so, early on, I brought on all our staff that I currently have been here from the beginning. Last year through COVID was obviously pretty rough. I made sure that I paid them exactly what they made prior to the pandemic. I had to tighten my purse strings a little bit, but I think that was important, and that says a lot. It said a lot about me and my company. And so, being able to see people and, like, back to I said, the relationships, treating everybody the same, and understanding that, if you treat your employees how you would want to be treated, they're going to be there for you. And they've really shown improved that throughout our growth. I continue to, praise them every single day. When I see them, I say thank you for, being who you are and doing what you do. And it's those little things, I think, that matter, especially when you're starting a company where, you want top talent, but that talent can, if it's truly top talent, they can really go anywhere they want. So, what's in it for them? And you have to really show them that it's more than just, even just a check. If you're creating a culture of inclusion and an environment that someone wants to be around, they're going to be there for a while. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. And kudos to you for fulfilling that promise to founders, not the founders, to your team, to continue to pay them and stuff like that, which probably said came at a personal cost to you. I think that topic needs to be explored even more amongst leaders when we do a recap of the pandemic. We'll talk a little bit about Verizon as well. So you got connected to Verizon for mentorship and marketing communications. Can you talk a little bit about that at a high level and the person you were connected to?
Yeah, so the Verizon program was really awesome too. So the gentleman that I was connected with, he has been at Verizon for over 20 years. And he had been in a role, or he had continued to be in roles that evolved throughout that time in marketing. So in some form of capacity in marketing, and everything from, I think we talked about just AT&T, or not AT&T, pardon me, Verizon, way back in the day when there was, hard-lined internet, and like just completely all the way up to today and where they're at. And the relationship that we built was a little bit different than the SAP program. But what I really liked about it is in the beginning, we just clicked. And I truly feel like it's going to be a lifelong relationship. Anytime I have a question, or, he's like, if you need a connect or a contact on something, if you need me to, look at a pitch deck, look at, a potential commercial that you're wanting to advertise, let me know. And I think having that type of relationship where it's a give and take, because on his end too, he's like, I love what you're doing with your company. I think it's fascinating. Verizon's always looking to partner with small businesses and really understand, what are those needs that they need for their products and services. And I think that was just great for him to be able to extend that out to us and say, hey, is it phone service? Is it internet? How fast does your internet need to be? Do you need to be able to have, a security system and things like that? Are they economical to small businesses when they're starting off? And so it was a really good give and take relationship. And it really felt like, for such a short period of meeting someone, that, like, if I texted him now with a question, he would text me back right away. So it was, both programs kind of gave different things, but I think one of the things, and this is really to the credit of Goody Nation, is you guys understand who we are as founders on our end. And so you guys partnered us with people who understood where we were coming from and what our goals and our expectations were. And it's not always going to be about, setting, an hour on everyone's calendar once a week just to kind of talk about something. A lot of times relationships are about, maybe not talking to that person for 2 or 3 months, but then, one of you needs something down the road, because we understand that we're both super busy. But when we need that, or when we have a question about something, it's really good to have those types of people in your pocket. He was actually filming some stuff with I think the NBA, and he asked me if I wanted to go out and connect with them, and just tell them how there's ways that maybe the NBA and Verizon could partner with small businesses. And so that looked good on his end for Verizon, and then also it gave me the opportunity to continue to build relationships. And so it really is a give and take when it comes to building and cultivating relationships with both people and also brands.
That's amazing. I didn't know about the NBA piece. So let's take a step back. So you mentioned a lot of great companies. You've had a lot of support, and I'm not saying that you've received probably all support that you need and stuff like that.
Nope, still looking for support.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But what do you as you think about your journey as a founder of color, a woman founder? You're in Atlanta. Atlanta's made great strides in entrepreneurship in the last few years, but we're not in terms of the connectedness. I'd probably say not New York, not San Francisco or the Bay Area. What do you think about just this concept in general about or even looking back at your journey? Like if you didn't have the ability to be inspired by Jewel, didn't have the ability to be inspired by Jasmine, didn't get into it takes a village, right? You didn't get into that ecosystem. You're not connected to SAP or Verizon. What do you think your entrepreneur journey is like? And can you imagine what it's like for other founders like that?
It I can, and the only reason I can is because when I was finishing at Goizeta Business School, we had the opportunity of going to South Africa, and we were in Johannesburg, and we visited an entrepreneurship hub, and it's exactly what you just said. These people are all the way half across the world. They're just as smart, just as talented as I am sitting here in Atlanta with this ecosystem, but they didn't have that ecosystem. And so it was, and this was before I became an entrepreneur too. So I was still in grad school, kind of figuring out what I was going to do next. And to see these people who were it was so inspiring. They were building things, they were using, things in their village that one woman, and I don't remember all the details, forgive me, but there was this one type of plant that only grew in her village. And she had created a lotion. And it was actually, she was in talks with, I believe it was like L'Oreal or like Procter and Gamble about using this to not only create her lotion, but to basically, keep her village, alive and thriving for years and years to come. And that was a really cool story, but that was kind of one of those like rarity cases. And so you have these entrepreneurs that in their mind, what was interesting was they were like, I just need to get to America. If I get to America, I will be able to be Mark Zuckerberg. Or and this was like really what it was like. If I can just get to America and show them my idea. And I think a lot of that's, you have Shark Tank and you have all these, different shows and, the Facebook movie and things. But it was kind of one of those things where like, okay, well, it's like, I don't want to break it to you, but just because you get to America doesn't mean, and it was a completely different experience seeing that. And so it made me grateful, coming back and having, Atlanta Tech Village and Goody Nation and the gathering spot in these places to be able to have this in my backyard and help me say, okay, this is my idea. Now, what are the next steps that I need to go? Versus them, it was like, this is my idea. Now I need to get to America. And then it's like, you get to America and then you realize that everyone has an idea. So I think it was eye-opening, but it was also something that is near and dear to my heart. Like my, end all be all goal is to become a venture capitalist and a philanthropist and be able to just give back. That's something that when I was a little girl, that was what when someone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I remember my mom said that I told her that I wanted to dress up as a homeless person on the New York subway and see what people needed help and give them money if I saw that they needed help.
Wow.
I know it's the wildest story. And that's basically what a philanthropist is. And, someone who cares about people and, see these underrepresented and underserved communities and give them that push and that help that they need. I was fortunate enough to go to two amazing schools, and get a great education, but not everyone has those opportunities. And so I really do try as much as I can to pay it forward. But to your point before, I still, I think one of the biggest things is having support from, these large companies. People are like, oh, she's good, she doesn't need anything else. But you do. I mean, I think that you have the support from these companies, but you also need support from people who are, have the talent and the skill to be able to take you to the next level. Not that these companies don't, but I think one of the biggest misconceptions is like, if you're in Silicon Valley, you can, that's where you get the top tech talent. So if you're going to start a company, you need to do it in Silicon Valley, because if not, your technology is not going to be as good because the developers are there. And so I think a lot of times people think that, people in South Africa think they have to get to America. People in Atlanta think that they have to get to Silicon Valley. Like, everyone's kind of chasing this like metaphorical circle of like places that you have to get to do something. And, I just want to let people know you can do it from anywhere, honestly. And it's just really about building those relationships. If 2020 taught us anything, it was, this face-to-face on Zoom can be just as impactful as it is in person, if not even more efficient.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. No, I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's. This has been an amazing conversation. Amazing conversation. Lots of gems here. Hope y'all are paying attention out there. Let's talk. I mean, it's kind of more so in closing. You want to talk about plans for the future? Any cool things you're working on? I mean, again, this is all public, so take it for what it's worth. But anything you want to share?
Yeah, so, I'm super fortunate to, like I said, to be a part of the Atlanta startup ecosystem. Very grateful and honored to just be a part of Goody Nation and Google for Startups and stuff. I love, eventually we will start fundraising. When I first started, I tried and we just weren't in the place to do it, and that's okay. I think that's like one of the biggest misconceptions is like, you start a startup, then you start fundraising right away. It works for some people, it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. But without those no's and that rejection, we wouldn't see the revenue that we do now. And it just came with time. Like, we had to like learn and we had to fall and get back up. But I didn't start Laine London to just own a wedding dress shop. That was never my intention. I see this as a business that is disrupting an industry. This is a huge industry. I think it's like 3.5 billion now. There's, over 500,000 weddings a year in the United States, with the average wedding costing anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000. And so, there's this huge opportunity that we've taken over the last couple years that's not being taken in any form or fashion how we're doing it. And so I think that being able to take it to the next level is going to take that, I guess you want to say, that venture backed money. But it's something that is still new to that world. And so I think educating investors that, hey, it's just not a wedding shop. You're not just investing in dresses, like, you're investing in me, and you're investing in my idea, and the proof that I've been able to show that, like, this is something that is here forever. Whether you're a part of it or not, is up to them. But I love, it's kind of rambling a little bit, but I love what Jules doing with Collab Capital. That's definitely something that's on my radar for later down the road. Sean O'Brien is one of my advisors over at Overline VC, him and Michael Cohn. They've been phenomenal. Their funds, not really kind of what their funds a little bit look different than bridal retail, but they've just been amazing support system and guides for me as I'm navigating. Is this fund something that I should look into? Is this program something that I should look into? And so just because you meet someone and they tell you no to their fund doesn't mean that that relationship's over. And I think I've been able to prove that with Sean and Michael. They've been crucial and pivotal to the success of Laine London, even though I know that, I may never be a part of their fund. That's okay. And so, I think that understanding what's right for you is important. And, I want to see Laine London grow into something even bigger than it is now. I don't want to give too much away of how we're going to be doing that, but, I have plans that put us at essentially over 7 million next year,
Nice.
based on the things that I have in play right now. And we would be doing all of that still with no one on our cap table besides me and my my
I
co-founder.
love it. I love it. I love it.
So,
That's great. Super,
try
super,
not to give too
I'm
much
super
away because I get
excited.
excited. I get excited about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm super excited to track this progress as well, and seeing how we can continue support. I think, really, as we close, one thing that jumped to mind to me is, I don't. Do you know the team from Sheer in Dallas?
I don't.
So they're another Google for Startups award winner. So Sheer is like Airbnb for, and hopefully they don't kill me for this, like Airbnb for hairstylists.
Okay.
And so the team there, Courtney Caldwell and her husband Ty, I think they've done like a $3-4 million seed round or something like that. But they had like 25 years experience with hair, either as a stylist or barber and things of that nature. And so they were able to leverage that domain expertise into, what they're working on right now.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, not saying that's what you're looking to be for, your thing. I'm just saying, just in general, just having the in person experience,
Yeah.
um, or the physical kind of, yeah, in person physical experience,
Yeah.
and then doing something online might be interesting. So I can make a connection.
Yeah. Well, and that I think that physical, when it comes to venture capital and just that whole world, they're not they're it's they're used to investing in like technology companies, and not like physical companies with assets, like wedding dresses. And so I think it's, again, something that I love that Jewel and Justin are doing at Collab is like their thesis is saying like, hey, just because you may not make us 10x what other venture firms are asking for in the first 1 or 2 years doesn't mean that we're just going to toss you out and you're done with. And I love that because I think that, something as, people of color, like we've had to build a resilience like no other. And so, taking on money can be scary, and taking on money and then someone saying, okay, now you need to 10x this in, 12 months, that can take a toll mentally on you, as well as physically. And so I think having a fund that says, hey, just because you don't outperform everyone else doesn't mean that we're going to put you to the side. I think that's something that is really appealing to me, and I think a lot of other funds will eventually see. Warby Parker is a great example. So Warby Parker started off online, direct to consumer. Now you go to Perimeter Mall and different malls, and they have storefronts. And so, they were venture backed. I'm not going to say the names of the companies, but there's several bridal direct to consumer venture backed companies that failed last year, and
Mm,
actually came to us asking if we were interested in buying their inventory. These
mm.
are companies that had 20-30 million dollar checks, had places in Soho, places in LA, and they're coming and asking me if I can take their inventory off their hands. And
Wow.
here I am still bootstrapped. And so I think that a lot of times people discount resiliency, but that's definitely something that I don't do. And I think that people like Jewel and Justin and you see, and I appreciate you guys being backing me and being at the support system that I needed, especially over this last year.
Nah, for sure, for sure. I mean, so one of the great things that I like about you, again, I'm a big fan. But as it relates to our program, and we talk about, at the end of the day, the relationship gap is really about trust. Does one person or one group trust another person in another group, particularly when the quote unquote power dynamics for various reasons are different? And so one of the ways at Goody Nation we look at trust is who shows up and who shows up in the right way. And what I can definitively tell you by you is that you show up, you do things the right way, and when, to your earlier point around, opportunities and being prepared, like it flows through how you execute and carry yourself. And so when opportunities come up, you're prepared personally, but also we trust that you have the ability to take advantage of whatever opportunities we can help put in front of you, right? Which means it's a win-win for everybody. So kudos to you for being who
I
you
appreciate
are.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Means a
welcome.
lot.
But yeah, and keep on doing what you're doing. But you just know that we notice, and it increases the amount of trust that we have in you. And so that being said, as we come to an end here, how can the people get in contact with you? You know, either personally, if they want to get a dress, or they know somebody looking to get a
Yeah.
dress, or they know somebody that knows somebody's looking to get a dress, stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can find us online. Our website's lainelondon.com, LAINELONDON.com. Instagram is our primary place where you can check out all of our beautiful gowns. My amazing social team. We're always posting fun videos with our brides. That's at Laine_London. Also on Facebook, but primarily Instagram. That's where all the fun happens. Or you can visit us. So our boutique is located in Chamblee, Georgia, which is still inside the perimeter. We're right by PDK Airport. Appointment only, but feel free to swing by. And if I'm there, I'll say hi. We can grab a cup of coffee or something. But yeah, just we're all over. And then also on Google. So if you Google us, we are the first thing that comes up. If you Google wedding dress rentals, we're the first thing that comes up. Shout out to Justin at Propellant Media, who actually Joey connected me with. They run all of our SEO and paid search through Google. So yeah, just Google us.
One time for Justin Crocs. There's a whole backstory there about how I met Justin and his
He's
wife. Actually,
amazing.
his wife Melanie used to be on my team, my original startup back in Tallahassee, Florida.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, relationships matter.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah. So this has been an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to seeing your growth, and I truly appreciate you coming on our show.
Absolutely.
For everyone, please learn more about her company. As you know, follow on Instagram and go to the website and stuff like that. You can also check out how to get in contact with her on our website, goodynation.org. And looking forward to our next conversation. But anything else, go out there, y'all, and create great relationships. Know that relationships do matter. She's shown you a great example of how tech is done right. And outwork yesterday, y'all.
Yes.
Peace out.
Bye, everyone.